I go by Michelle. Growing up, my twin sister Linda and I had quite different experiences like night and day. I was not the golden girl. She was. While our mother was the ideal housewife, emphasizing home and family and pushing us to follow her example, our dad, a rigorous university professor, was always buried in books and lectures. Being at home felt to me from early on as like going through an endless critiquing session. The ideal family that my parents had in mind excluded a daughter who preferred to keep to herself and wore band t-shirts. Usually addressed at me when I came up for breakfast wearing headphones on, trying to block out the world, my mother's favorite line was, "Michelle, why can't you be more like your sister?" Linda, on the other hand, reveled in praise. Turning her immaculate hair over her shoulder, she would ask, "I just don't get why it's so hard for you to put on a nice dress and smile more." She sounded to be from another planet. One very difficult Saturday as our family prepared for one of Dad's faculty parties, a huge bore but a required occasion for us, I chose to resist in the tiniest manner I knew how to do. I applied my darkest eyeliner and a pair of boots, clearly falling short of the needed criteria. "You are not going out like that, are you?" Mom saw me on the steps, staring angrily at my boots as though they were dirty. I shrugged, as usual, in defense. "Do not see why not." She sighed, that long drawn-out type that stated I was the worst letdown in her otherwise orderly life. "Please, Michelle, just this once, could you attempt to fit in?" "Why for? So you can act as though our family is ideal." Weary of the same old dispute, I shot back. She said, her voice harsh enough to indicate business, "It's not about pretending. It's about showing respect for your father." Hearing the conversation, Linda arrived galloping down the hall, her heels clicking on the wooden floor like a judge approaching the bench. "Mom's right, Amy. It's not difficult to look decent. Why must everything constantly be difficult for you?" "I would not want to be your clone, Linda." I snapped and felt my face heat. More than anything, I disliked feeling the odd one out in my own house. I despised these debates and hated being compared. Dad showed up at the bottom of the stairs, eyebrows wrinkled. "Michelle, go change. Just now. We are leaving in 15 minutes, he said with great clarity. His voice did not allow any debate. He neither shouted nor felt compelled to. His displeasure in his eyes was sufficient to send me storming back to my room to change my boots for basic flats and wash half of my eyeliner away. Except for the classical music Dad insisted on playing since it was relaxing, the car was silent as we traveled to the party. I watched the woods blurring past out the window. I vowed to myself in that instant that eventually I would live a life free from direction on what to wear, behave, or who to be. I would be free of these expectations someday. Only in my room could I pretend to be anywhere else, any place else in the home. My room was mine, unlike the rest of the house, bursting with my parents' choices. It was not much, just 3 walls covered in music posters and sketches, but it was my means of escape from the demands of my family. Dad knocked one evening as I was attempting to bury myself in a playlist of my favorite bands and marched into my room, his face set in a familiar grimace. "Michelle, turn that noise down. And why hadn't you worked with Linda today? You both have tests coming up," he continued, sounding austere. Pulling one earpiece, I stared up at him, attempting to keep my voice under control. "I have been researching, not with Linda. I pick things better working alone." Dad shook his head, obviously not believing me. "You are familiar with the guidelines. Your sister earns decent marks. You should be following suit. Why you constantly have to complicate things escapes me." "It's not about making things difficult," I responded, my annoyance mounting. "I simply find it strange that I have to follow Linda's instructions exactly. Surely I have my own preferred method of learning." He answered that differently, then turned to another concern. "And those dear buddies of yours? Yesterday I watched you with them at the cafe. They hardly seem to be a positive impact. You should be spending more time with the daughters of my colleagues. They are more suited. I sensed my temper getting hot. Relevant for what? For your benefit. Because they pretend to love those dull academic events and discuss economics. Mom showed up at the door, her voice shrill before he could reply. Michelle, your father makes correct observations. Those girls come from decent homes. They know how to act. These are the kind of buddies you need to wish for. Rising, I faced each of them. What if I object to friends selected for me? What if I want to pick my own companions, decide what I study, or even decide what I want to be? That's enough, Michelle. Mom insisted. Your father has made sure your future resides at the university, and once you graduate, you will have to start considering a place for residence. We have already spoke on this. Settling down. The word seemed to be a prison sentence. You mean considering being someone's wife like Linda? Is that all you believe me to be appropriate for? Mom's voice kept stern while her expression softened somewhat. We desire for you what is best. Traveling the road we have chosen will lead to a decent existence. A fine life. I kept saying, the bitterness of irony in my mouth. Is it a good life if it's someone else's idea of good? None answered. They didn't need to. We all realized there was no benefit in debating. Like Linda, they had their ideas and wanted me to do as advised. Though always together, Linda and I were like two sides of the same coin, never on the same page. The variations between us became much more obvious at the university Dad taught. She loved business management, the golden child, usually nodding in lectures and posing intelligent questions that made the speaker grin. Me personally, I stayed in the same program, but it felt like wearing a shoe on the wrong foot. Awkward, unpleasant, and just plain wrong. One afternoon, Linda rushed in, her notes neat, her grin ready, while I was laboring through a stack of textbooks in the library. Hey, Amy, tonight you are attending the study group? Professor Hall suggested he might drop by. It would be excellent for us to show up, she continued, her tone light but firm. I looked up, weight of her expectations weighing in mind. No, I do not believe this. You know, those are not exactly my scene. She wrinkled and set her books down with a thud that mirrored her contempt. It's not about that being your scene, Amy. It is about leaving appropriate impressions. You should start giving this some thought. We will be graduating soon. I gave a shrug and turned back to study. I am treating it seriously, just not in a way that irritates me. For what reason should I pretend? Because, Amy, sometimes you have to play the game to get ahead, she remarked, waving at her orderly notes and color-coded textbooks. It's about doing what's required, not about like it. I shook my head, then scraped my chair back. Well, maybe I'm bored with following everyone else's advised course of action. You never gave that any thought. Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. Amy, I am simply trying to assist you. Dad will not always be here to correct problems. Keep pushing everyone away, and what will you do? Perhaps I will sort things out on my own. Feeling a flash of rebellion, I said maybe I don't need to follow Dad's road or yours. Linda sighed, obviously annoyed. You really are rather stubborn. Just try, friend. If not for yourself, for me. Show up tonight and chat to Professor Hall. It isn't going to kill you. I looked at her, truly looked, and saw someone who cared in her own way rather than just my beautiful sister. Fine, I'll give it some thought. I gave in, not ready to promise more. Thanks, she responded, her smile coming back. You know, it's not really terrible. You might even appreciate it given some time. I mumbled, doubt it, but I knew I had lost this round. I would show up for Linda, sit through another pointless conversation, and nod at appropriate moments. Just a few hours, how horrible could it be? As it happened, not as horrible as I had imagined. When Professor Hall was not standing on a podium, he was really fascinating. I even posed a question, which Linda gave a startled but happy glance. Linda nodded at me later as we headed back to our room. As seen here, not that bad then. That fleeting serenity was not long-lasting. Linda introduced us to her fiancé, a lawyer 12 years older who already lived exactly what our parents dreamed of and was already well established. Happy, Mom and Dad praised Linda for such wise decision. Then they turned to look hopefully at me. "Now, Michelle, it's your turn to find someone suitable," Dad stated one evening over dinner, his voice suggesting my limited time. Mom nodded fervently, already sketching out my existence as though it were just one of her orderly pursuits. "Imagine your future, sweetheart. Someone with strong status who can support you." I recall being caught looking at my plate. Mom meticulously arranged Linda's wedding from the bridesmaids' gowns to the flowers. Everything highlighted her ideal view of family reputation. Mom visited Linda frequently following the wedding to offer guidance and ensure Linda's life unfolded just as she had intended. Seeing this made one clear. I wanted no one else to be in charge of my life. One day, engrossed in ideas of fleeing the life my parents envisioned for me, I was strolling down the street when I heard the low rumble of a motorcycle. I looked. Curiosity drove me to see him. Pulling up next to me, Brian had a carefree smile and a leather jacket. Over the sound of the engine, he said, "You look like you need a ride," a cheeky glitter in his eyes. I hesitated, then at his outstretched hand, turned back toward the road home. What did I have to forfeit? "Yes, why not?" I said, my voice a mix of anxiety and enthusiasm. Rising onto the rear of his bike, I had an adrenaline surge as we raced off. I laughed, a real laugh for the first time in a long time as the wind blasted through my hair. Brian yelled something about showing me his world, and I tightened myself, not wanting the moment to stop. We stopped at a diner that drew bikers. Brian shared with me his life as a welder, his love of bikes, and his adoration of the open road over burgers and fries. Raw and authentic was quite different from anything I had known. "Living like this makes you afraid," my voice hardly rising over the din of plates and conversation around us. I asked, "Afraid? No, it's rather exciting. One never knows what is ahead. Is it not better than having all of your life scheduled?" He answered, each word lighting his gaze. We convened in secret over the next several weeks. Every ride Brian's motorcycle pushed me closer to the life I dreamed of and farther from the life I was supposed to live. I yearned for speed, the quest. It was about feeling alive as much as the excitement. Empowering. Brian turned to me one evening while we watched the sunset from a quiet vantage point. "Michelle, I ride not merely to get away. I get on to feel alive, to count every moment toward anything. Every minute seems to have value while you are around." With a rapid pulse, I leaned in toward him. Never had felt like this before. "Brian, you let me feel free." He grinned and drew me in. "Then let's not return to merely existing. Live with me." 5 months with Brian seemed to be a lifetime of events I had always dreamed of. My heart shouted yes before my voice could utter the word on the day he suggested under the stars with the soft rumble of his Harley in the background. Except for one major flaw, my parents, it was ideal. Introducing Brian to them terrified me. He was everything they disapproved of, his wild energy, his basic but contented life as a welder, his rough edges. But love gave me confidence, and I felt it was time they should know. Brian wore his typical leather vest, red t-shirt, tattered trousers, and a bandana when I took him home. About him I loved. He was always himself. I felt the weight of my parents' criticism already as we strolled up the driveway. Mom's face became white as soon as we entered upon Brian, her eyes widening in shock. "What in the universe, Michelle?" Her voice just a whisper, she gasped. Dad responded more sharply. His words were like knives. "Who is this and why is he wearing thug clothes in our house?" I inhaled deeply to calm my phrase. "Mom, Dad, Brian here is you. I love the man, you know. We are planning to be married." The quiet was absolutely overwhelming. Then Dad looked at Brian, his voice full of contempt. "Married? Young man, what kind of living do you lead? Describe your credentials." Brian, bless him, did not waver. "I work as a welder. Following high school, I attended several specialist classes. I keep an honest life and work hard." My parents looked at me with a mixture of dread and incredulity. Mom gave the impression of maybe passing out. "A welder? Michelle, you really cannot be serious." Dad's voice grew louder, rage erupting. "You look to us to bless this, to trash your future for a welder." I sensed my determination becoming harder. "Indy, he makes me happy. Surely what counts should be this." "But the life you'll lead," Mom said, her voice shaking. "It will be the life I choose." I shot back, my own voice gathering force. Dad shook his head, his choice obvious. "Neither can we nor will we support this. Should you choose him, you should not expect to be a member of this family." Though not his choice, the finality in his voice devastated my heart. Brian gave me the power to face them by squeezing my hand. Then I go with Brian. I choose us. I deliberate on my happiness. Dad's jaw tightened and Mom started crying. Dad remarked, his voice icy, "If you walk out with him, don't bother coming back." My heart was a muddle of emotions. Pain, relief, excitement, and anxiety all blended together as I left my parents' house with Brian. The evening air seemed different, as though every breath marked a fresh start. I moved farther into a fresh life. For a while we rode silently, the motorbike under us roaring steadily. Brian looked gravely at me when we stopped at a tiny diner on the outskirts of town. "Are you sure, Michelle, about this? Really sure, I mean? After tonight, there is no going back." His eyes dart across mine for any hint of uncertainty. I nodded and firmly squeezed his hand. "I have never been so definite about anything. It feels proper to be with you. It seems like what I should be doing." He grinned that careless, seductive smile that had captured me on our first day together. "Let's do it all right then. Let us start our life together." We came upon a peaceful booth in the corner of the diner. Without asking, the waitress brought us 2 coffees. We sat there organizing our next actions. So, first, asked stirring cream into my coffee. I inquired and watched it whirl. "We will have to locate somewhere to live, at least temporarily, and maybe hunt for work." Brian said, sounding pragmatic but hopeful, "I have some friends that could help us get started." "It's going to be tough, isn't it?" More as a statement than a query, I said. What we were doing was beginning to sink in reality. Brian stretched across the table to lay his palm over mine. "It could be, but we will manage it together. Tough is nothing fresh for either of us, right?" I laughed, a brief, honest flash of pleasure. "Right." We spoke and planned hours in the meal together. Brian would periodically bring up a concept that seemed so wild and free that it would cause my heart to leap. "Just you, myself, and the open road. Maybe one day we will save enough to travel that road trip across the nation." "I like that," I answered, letting myself dream larger than I had ever done. Riding back into the city, we started looking. The next few weeks burst with action. On the outskirts of town, we located a little apartment. Though not sophisticated, it was ours. Brian started working at a nearby garage, and I took shifts at a diner nearby. Though life was difficult, it was ours. We made do with what we had. Every night when we returned home to see one another, it felt as though we had everything. Months later, we decided it was time to formalize it and married in a little private ceremony. I clung to a meager hope that my family would show up, that they would see how delighted I was, and release their preconceptions. But no congrats arrived, and the chairs we had set aside for them remained empty. The day was lovely as it was ours, even with the ache of their absence. I moved really close to Brian's mother over time. Calling me her daughter, she greeted me with wide arms and filled up the void left by my own family. Some of the hurt left by my parents' rejection healed under her kindness and acceptance. Once Brian finished some more training and earned a certification as an underwater welder, things finally began to look good for him and me. His pay shot to $230,000 annually. That shift made a big difference. Friends, we were able to purchase a townhouse in a lovely neighborhood, the kind of location I had always wanted, but never considered I would really live in. I started with Brian's company as a dispatcher. It was more than simply employment. It felt like I was helping the man I loved to create our future together. We rode his bike out of the city on weekends, speeding across twisting roads and savoring the amazing vistas of landscape. Those times were sheer delight, wind in my hair and Brian's warmth against my back. Living nearby, my mother-in-law started paying regular visits. She came looking a little disturbed one afternoon while Brian was experimenting in the garage and I was preparing coffee. She continued, settling down at the kitchen table. "There's been some bad news. Something about a university professor engaged in a harassment scandal." My heart missed a beat. Did they name who it was? Fearing the response, I attempted to keep my voice steady. She gave her head a shake. "No, on the radio they omitted a name, but you know how these things turn out. By now it most likely shows all over the TV." Nodding, I experienced a tsunami of anxiety. Turning on the TV, I tuned in to the news. Indeed, there was a scandal report available. My father's face showed up on the screen as I had anticipated. The anchor went over the charges against him, and I had a chilly feeling of incredulity. I turned off the TV and sank down hard to try to sort the news. Brian observed my expression when he came in drying his hands with a cloth. "What's wrong, honey?" His brow wrinkled in sympathy as he inquired. I sucked hard, my voice hardly a whisper. "It's my dad. He has been charged with stalking a pupil." Brian's gaze turned grave for a time before he stepped over to take my hand. "Apologies, Michelle. That is challenging news. How do you want to approach this?" I shook my head, uncertain of anything. "I am not sure. What really can I even do? Not close anymore is what we are." Squeezing my hand, he indicated he understood. "I am here for you, anything you need. Right now, we don't have to work it all out." Before acting, I chose to wait and watch events develop. Knowing Brian would be by my side, whatever choice I made gave me the fortitude to face whatever lay ahead. Until that surprising afternoon at work, life had been calm. Then a familiar automobile drew into the parking lot. After not seeing my parents in a long time, the sight of them set out a range of feelings I had long put to rest. They both had somewhat different appearances. Mom had dropped a lot of weight and appeared considerably older, while Dad seemed broken, a shell of the strict man he once was. The controversy had taken its toll. Seeing me, my mother hurried forward with arms outstretched as though years of alienation and criticism could be wiped away in a single glance. Not now, though, I could embrace her. Rather, I retreated and grabbed Brian's hand to get strength from his presence. Mom responded, her voice shaking with passion. "Michelle, it was so hard to find you." Always the direct one, Dad spoke angrily and bitterly and got right to the point. "You know, I felt unfairly accused. When I sought assistance from your sister's spouse, that leech demanded a fortune. Your sister backed him, and now we were kicked out. We depend on your assistance." I looked at them, incredulity and rage whirling inside me. "Help? You turn up and expect help after all these years?" Mom said in great desperation, "We have nowhere else to go. They have also turned against us. We considered maybe staying with you." I almost found the ridiculousness funny. "Stay beside me. Once you turned away from me." You made it rather plain that I was no longer your daughter. Dad's cheeks reddened as his old passion flared. Michelle, you owe us. Ultimately, what we have done for you. Feeling a fresh determination, I said, that's where you're wrong. I cut them off, Brian squeezing my hand for encouragement. I have nothing to owe you. Chose my happiness over your needs, so you threw me out. Now you want to just move in and behave like we are a family once more. The matter was spiraling out of hand, and I could see others observing a little gathering starting to develop. Mom began to cry, her sobs clear and attracting even more attention. Through tears, she said, "You're being unappreciative after everything we've done for you." I breathed deeply, my choice obvious. "No, Mom," says, "I am not undulating in thanks. I have spare time and am content. You made decisions, now you have to live with them." Heard my dad screaming as we left, but Brian reached over and softly instructed the security staff, "Don't let them come here again." Love and calm permeated the next months, which sped by. For our expanding family, a son welcomed as a fresh start. Neither did my parents ever return. I saw them last on that day in the parking lot. Though part of me mourned for what could have been, I knew I had chosen wisely for my family and for myself.
Hey, I'm Andy. I'm 22, in college, and yeah, I've got a prosthetic leg. It happened after an accident when I was a kid, but I never let it hold me back. I work hard and try to stay positive, you know. Anyway, my brother Leo is graduating soon from this prestigious university. He's always been the golden child, straight A's, athletic, the whole deal. Me, I'm just the guy with the fake leg he's embarrassed to be seen with. Last week, I was helping Mom hang streamers for Leo's graduation party. Dad was outside grilling, and the smell of burgers was already in the air. "Andy, can you grab the plates from the pantry?" Mom called out. "Sure thing." I shouted back as I headed into the kitchen. But just as I got close, I overheard Leo talking in a low, angry voice. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk about the party." I stopped in my tracks, curious. "What about it, sweetie?" Mom asked. "I don't want Andy there," he said. The silence that followed felt suffocating. My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" Dad asked, his voice tense. "I don't want people staring at his prosthetic leg. It's my day. I don't want anything to ruin it, not even him." It felt like a punch to the gut. Was that really how Leo saw me? "Leo, that's a horrible thing to say," Mom gasped. "It's the truth. I've worked hard for this. Can't I have one day where I'm not just the guy with the disabled brother?" Leo said coldly. "Son, you can't exclude your brother," Dad replied, but there was no strength behind his words. "Please, just this once," Leo pleaded. "Tell him he has a doctor's appointment or something." Silence stretched, and I knew what was coming. "Fine," Mom sighed. "But this is the last time, Leo. You need to be kinder to your brother." I backed away from the door, my heart racing. They were going to lie to me, exclude me from my own brother's party, because I embarrassed him. I felt tears prick at my eyes as I made my way to my room. How could they do this? How could Leo be so cruel? But I wouldn't let them see how much it hurt. I'd smile, act normal, and pretend I never heard a thing. That's what I've always done. Stay positive. Never let them see me sweat. But this time felt different. This betrayal cut deep, and I didn't know how I'd bounce back from it. As I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered how much longer I could keep pretending everything was okay, and whether I even wanted to anymore. When the day of Leo's graduation came, I couldn't bear the thought of facing my family's lies. As they rushed around getting ready, I dragged myself to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. "Andy, honey, are you feeling all right?" Mom called through the door. "Not really," I croaked, hating myself for playing along with their lie. I think I caught a bug or something. Oh no, she sighed. Do you need us to stay home? No, you guys go. It's Leo's big day, I replied. I heard them leave, the front door clicking shut behind them. As soon as their car pulled away, I texted Mia. Within minutes, she was at my door. All right, spill, she said, flopping onto my bed. What's really going on? I told her everything. The conversation I overheard, the exclusion, the lies. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Andy, that's messed up. You can't let them get away with this. What am I supposed to do? I asked, frustration seeping into my voice. Confront them. All of them. Make them face what they've done. Hours later, I heard the car pull up. Mia squeezed my hand as my family came through the door. Andy, we're home, Mom called. In here, I replied, my voice steady. They walked into the living room, their smiles fading when they saw Mia and me waiting for them. What's going on? Leo asked, suspicion in his voice. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing, I said, standing up. How was the graduation, Leo? Sorry I couldn't make it. Must have been nice not having your brother there. The color drained from their faces. Andy, we can explain. Dad started. Explain what? I cut him off. How you lied to me. How you excluded me from Leo's graduation because he's ashamed of me. You weren't supposed to hear that, Leo muttered. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to schedule my eavesdropping better next time, I snapped. How long have you felt this way, Leo? How long have I been a burden to you? You don't understand, Leo said, his voice rising. Do you know how hard it's been, always being known as the guy with the disabled brother? Watching people's faces change when they find out. Leo. Mom gasped, but I raised my hand to stop her. No, let him finish. I want to hear this. It's always about you, Andy, Leo continued, years of resentment pouring out. Poor Andy. Brave Andy. What about me? What about what I want? What you want? I laughed bitterly. You've always gotten what you wanted. The grades, the scholarships, the perfect graduation. Was it worth it? Was throwing your own brother under the bus worth it? Andy, please. Mom said, tears in her eyes. We didn't mean. Save it. I cut her off. I'm done. I'm done pretending everything's okay when it's not. I'm done being the family secret you're all ashamed of. I grabbed the bag I'd packed earlier and headed for the door. Where are you going? Dad called after me. Anywhere but here. I didn't look back as Mia, and I drove away, my phone buzzing with messages. News travels fast in a small town, and our family drama was already making the rounds. One of those messages was from Leo's girlfriend, Sarah. She was disgusted by what she'd heard and was done with him. But I couldn't bring myself to care. All I could think about was how my own family had betrayed me, and how, for the first time, I had stood up for myself. It hurt like hell, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Living with Mia was like a breath of fresh air. No more walking on eggshells, no more feeling like a burden. I threw myself into my studies, determined to prove, not just to my family, but to myself, that I was more than just the guy with a prosthetic leg. One day, Mia suggested I check out a support group for people with prosthetics. Might be good for you, she said. Meet some people who get it, you know. Reluctantly, I went. And man, am I glad I did. That's where I met Emily. She was a law student volunteering there, passionate about disability rights. The moment I saw her, I was smitten. First time here? She asked, smiling warmly. That obvious, huh? I replied with a chuckle. We got to talking, and before I knew it, we were grabbing coffee after the meeting. Emily was different from anyone I'd ever met. She saw me, all of me, not just the prosthetic. You've got a unique perspective, she said one night over dinner. Ever thought about turning that into a career? I hadn't, but Emily's words planted a seed. Maybe I could make a difference for others like me. While my life was looking up, Leo's was falling apart. Karma's a thing. Turns out someone at Leo's graduation party overheard his cruel comments about me. And that someone happened to be the daughter of a scholarship committee member. An anonymous tip made its way to the committee, and suddenly Leo's future wasn't looking so bright. I found out from Mom, who called me in tears. "Andy, it's Leo. They're reviewing his scholarship. He's not handling it well." I felt a twinge of guilt, but it quickly vanished when I remembered Leo's words. "That's not my problem, Mom. He's drinking, lashing out at us. Please, Andy, can't you talk to him?" "No," I said firmly. "I can't fix this for him." The investigation into Leo's behavior was thorough. It wasn't just about what he said about me. Former classmates came forward with stories of his discriminatory behavior. It was like once the floodgates opened, there was no stopping it. Then things got even worse. The university started questioning Leo's academic integrity. Apparently, there were suspicious patterns in his work. I couldn't help but wonder if Leo had been cutting corners all along, banking on his charm to see him through. Emily kept me updated on the legal side. "It's not looking good for him, Andy," she said one night as we cuddled on the couch. "The university takes this kind of thing seriously." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. "He made his bed," I said finally. "Now he has to lie in it." The verdict came down like a hammer. Leo's scholarship was revoked, his degree was under review, and his reputation was in shambles. News spread quickly through academic circles. Leo, once the golden boy, had become a cautionary tale. Mom called again, her voice pleading. "Heed your brother, Andy. Please." He stopped being my brother the moment he decided I was too embarrassing to be seen with. I replied, surprised at the steel in my voice. I hung up, and Emily wrapped her arms around me. "You okay?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath, realizing that for the first time in a long while, I truly was. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." The old me might have felt guilty, might have rushed to Leo's rescue. But not anymore. I was done being the family scapegoat. It was time for Leo to face the consequences of his actions, just like I've faced mine every day since losing my leg. As Emily and I settled in to watch a movie, I couldn't help but feel like this was the beginning of something new, something better. And for once, I was excited to see where life would take me. Graduation day arrived, but this time, I was the one crossing the stage. As I accepted my diploma, I caught sight of Emily in the crowd, beaming with pride. I had done it. Graduated with honors. A few weeks after everything, I landed a job at Tech Access, an inclusive tech company. "We need perspectives like yours," my new boss had said. That's when the idea hit me, an app to help people with prosthetics navigate daily challenges. I poured my heart into it, spending late nights in endless coding sessions. When it finally launched, the response was overwhelming. "Andy, you're trending," Emily exclaimed one morning, shoving her phone toward me. The app was making waves, and suddenly, I was being called an advocate for disability rights. As my star rose, Leo's life continued to fall apart. His degree had been officially revoked. It turned out those suspicious patterns were full-blown cheating. He couldn't find work, and his reputation was in tatters. Leo moved back home, a bitter shell of his former self. One night, as Emily and I were celebrating the app's success, my phone buzzed. Leo's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then declined the call. "He's been trying to reach out," Emily said softly. I shook my head. Too little, too late. To their credit, my parents had come around. Mom called regularly, genuinely interested in my work. "We're so proud of you, Andy," she'd say, her voice tinged with regret over the past. Even the extended family rallied around me. Suddenly, I was the success story, the one they bragged about at gatherings. It was a strange feeling, but not unwelcome. Then came the family reunion. I almost didn't go, but Emily convinced me. "You've got nothing to be ashamed of," she reminded me. We were barely through the door when I heard Leo's slurred voice. "Well, if it isn't the golden boy," he sneered. The room fell silent as Leo stumbled toward me, reeking of alcohol. "Come to show off your fancy app, your perfect life." "Leo, that's enough," Dad warned. "No, let him talk," I said calmly, meeting his gaze. "What do you want, Leo?" "I want my brother back," he shouted. "I want forgiveness. I've lost everything because of you." I took a deep breath. "No, Leo. You lost everything because of you, your choices, your actions. I've moved on. I suggest you do the same." "You sanctimonious prick," Leo snarled, lunging forward. Uncle Mike quickly grabbed him, holding him back. "I think it's time you left, Leo," Mom said firmly. As they escorted him out, I felt Emily's hand slip into mine. She squeezed gently, and I squeezed back, grateful for her unwavering support. The next year flew by in a whirlwind of success and personal joy. Emily and I got engaged, and now, as I stood on stage at a disability rights conference, I saw her in the front row, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Our app has helped thousands," I said into the microphone. "But we're just getting started. There's so much more to do." As I spoke about resilience and self-acceptance, I couldn't help but think of Leo. Last I heard, he was working as a janitor, still bitter and alone. Part of me felt sad for him, but I knew I couldn't fix his life for him. In the end, I concluded, looking out at the sea of faces, it's not about overcoming disability. It's about embracing who we are, all of us, and demanding that the world make space for us. Because we belong here, just as we are. The applause was deafening, but all I could see was Emily's smile. As I stepped off the stage and into her embrace, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely whole. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Andy made the right choice by refusing to forgive Leo? Or should he have given his brother another chance? How far should family loyalty extend when someone has repeatedly hurt you? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
Hi, I'm Laura. Growing up, I always felt like a shadow in my family, constantly eclipsed by my brother Johnson. My parents never hid their disappointment in me. From the moment I was born, they seemed to regret my very existence. My birth had nearly cost my mother her life, and to make matters worse, I was born with a defect, a constant reminder of that traumatic time. "You should have never been born, Laura. Look at what you did to your mother." My father's words echoed through the hollow halls of our home, his face twisted with anger and regret. My mother, on the other hand, barely acknowledged me unless it was to compare me unfavorably to Johnson. "Why can't you be more like your brother? He excels at everything without even trying," she'd say, her hand smoothing his hair with pride, a pride she never showed me. Despite the coldness of home, I found a bit of peace during the short stays with my grandparents. Their home was a world away from mine, filled with warmth and laughter, two things that were in short supply at my house. "Laura, come help me in the garden," my grandmother would call, her voice gentle and inviting. Those moments, planting flowers and harvesting vegetables, were my escape from the harsh reality waiting for me at home. "Why do your parents keep you locked up in that gloomy house? You need sunlight, fresh air, and friends your age," my grandfather would often grumble after a few glasses of iced tea on the porch. "I don't know, Grandpa," I'd shrug. "They say it's because I'm not strong enough, or that I might get hurt." I tried to hide the pain that their words would resurface. "But you're strong, Laura. Stronger than anyone I know," he'd insist, squeezing my hand with surprising strength for his age. One summer, the stark difference between my two worlds became unbearable. As I watched Johnson blow out the candles on yet another birthday cake I was never invited to share, something inside me broke. Why do I even exist if I'm such a burden? I whispered to myself, the words barely audible but heavy with the sorrow of my young heart. That night, under the cover of darkness, I packed a small bag, just a few treasures. A worn-out doll, a book of fairy tales, and a photo of my grandparents. With silent tears streaming down my face, I made my way to the only place I ever felt wanted. The knock on my grandparents' door was the hardest thing I ever done. But when they opened it, their concern quickly turned to determination. "Laura, whatever it is, we're here for you," my grandmother said, pulling me into a hug that felt like the safety I'd longed for my entire life. That night, as I lay in the guest room, surrounded by the comforting sounds of their home, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep living in the shadows, unloved and neglected. It was time to fight for the life I deserved, with the only people who had ever truly loved me. "Laura, it's time you started school like other kids your age," Grandma declared one morning at breakfast. Her words were firm, and the determined look in Grandpa's eyes left no room for argument. "But what about Mom and Dad? They don't think I'm ready," I mumbled, fiddling nervously with my spoon. "We'll handle your parents. You need education and friends, not isolation," Grandpa said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Later that day, they drove me home to confront my parents. The tension in the air was thick as Grandpa knocked on the door. "Johnson and Laura should have equal opportunities, and Laura has been kept in the dark for too long," Grandpa declared as soon as the door opened. "This is none of your business," my father snapped, his voice cold and dismissive. "It is our business when you neglect our granddaughter," Grandma shot back, her voice steady but filled with an anger I'd never heard before. After much discussion, and the undeniable logic of my grandparents, my parents reluctantly agreed to enroll me in school. My first day was a whirlwind of excitement and terror. I clutched my backpack tightly as I walked into the classroom, already feeling the weight of curious eyes on me. "Why do you look so weird?" a boy sneered at recess. I tried to shrink away, but his words stung, echoing the cruel remarks I'd grown up hearing. Despite the bullying, I found refuge in books and the certainty of numbers. Equations made sense when the world around me didn't. But one day, the teasing turned physical. Some older kids cornered me behind the gym. Johnson, who was in the same school, turned a blind eye. "Leave me alone," I shouted, my back pressed against the cold brick wall. "What are you gonna do, freak?" Jared, the leader, sneered, his face twisted in a cruel smirk. Without thinking, I swung the textbook I was holding, hitting him square in the nose. Shocked by what I'd done, I ran, tears blurring my vision, not stopping until I was home. Bursting through the front door, I was met by my father's angry glare. "Causing trouble at school now? Can't you do anything right?" he bellowed, advancing toward me. I was defending myself. I yelled back, anger rising in my chest. For once, I was fed up with being the victim. His hand lifted, but before it could come down, my mother stepped in. "John, stop. She's just a child," she said, grabbing his arm. "Stay out of this," he snapped. But that brief hesitation gave me the chance to slip away. I ran straight to my grandparents' house, sobbing as I told them what had happened. "They can't keep treating you like this, Laura." "It's not right," Grandma whispered, holding me tightly. "We're going to do something about this, once and for all," Grandpa added, his jaw set with determination. And I knew they would. They had always been the ones to fight for me. As I fell asleep in my old, comforting bed that night, for the first time in my life, I dared to hope. Hope that things could be different, that I could be more than the unwanted child. The morning after my return, Grandma and Grandpa were already on the phone, their voices filled with urgency and determination. They were talking to a lawyer, a family friend who specialized in family law. "They've gone too far this time. It's not just neglect, it's abuse," Grandpa argued into the phone, his hand gripping the receiver tightly. Grandma paced back and forth, jotting down notes. "We need to file for emergency custody. Laura isn't safe there," she said firmly. The next few weeks blurred by in a whirlwind of meetings and legal documents. I learned terms like custody and guardianship, words I had never needed to know before. I was caught between fear of what my parents might do and relief that finally someone was standing up for me. At the custody hearing, my parents arrived wearing masks of concern, a far cry from the indifference I'd known all my life. "We love our daughter and want what's best for her," my father said to the judge, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "He's lying," I whispered to Grandma, gripping her hand tightly. The judge looked at me, his expression unreadable. "And what do you think is best for you, Laura?" he asked. My heart pounded as I took a deep breath. "I want to stay with my grandparents. They care about me," I said, my voice trembling but determined. There was a heavy silence in the room. Then the judge nodded slowly, making notes. "We'll consider your wishes, Laura," he said. A few days later, the judge granted temporary custody to my grandparents. In that courtroom, my parents' masks cracked, their anger barely contained. "You're stealing our daughter," my mother hissed as they stormed out. "We're saving her," Grandpa replied quietly, his arm protectively around me. Back at my grandparents' house, life began to change. I had my own room, painted a soft light blue with white trimmings, a stark contrast to the dark, neglected space I had at my parents' house. "Let's plant a garden just for you," Grandma suggested one sunny morning. "You can choose whatever you want to plant." As we dug into the earth, planting tomatoes, carrots, and sunflowers, something inside me began to heal. The simple act of caring for something and watching it grow was therapeutic. Grandpa and I spent afternoons discussing legal strategies and chess strategies too. "Life's a bit like chess, Laura. You have to think ahead, plan your moves," he said, tapping a pawn gently. "And what if something unexpected happens?" I asked, moving my knight. "Then you adapt, just like you're doing now," he said, smiling with pride in his eyes. Evenings were filled with baking with Grandma or watching old movies wrapped in blankets on the couch. Laughter became a common sound, and for the first time, I started to feel like I belonged. As the final custody hearing approached, anxiety gnawed at me. But Grandma squeezed my hand and whispered, "No matter what happens, you're home now, Laura." In that moment, surrounded by their love and support, I understood what it meant to have a sanctuary. It wasn't just a place, it was where I could be myself, safe and cherished. When we arrived at the courthouse, it was quiet, almost solemn. My heart raced as we awaited the judge's final decision. Grandma and Grandpa sat beside me, their presence as reassuring as ever. The judge reviewed his notes, then looked up, meeting my anxious gaze. "After reviewing all the evidence and considering Laura's best interests, I grant permanent custody to her grandparents," he said. A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it felt almost tangible. Grandma squeezed my hand, tears of joy and relief in her eyes, while Grandpa nodded, his expression one of quiet triumph. Outside the courthouse, the air had never tasted sweeter. "We did it, Laura. You're safe now," Grandma whispered, hugging me tightly. But they didn't stop there. Ever the strategist, Grandpa had one more move to make. "It's time to secure your future completely," he said one evening, showing me documents for their will. My parents' names were conspicuously absent, replaced by mine. "This is your inheritance now. We want you to have security, something they never gave you," he explained, signing the document with a steady hand. The finality of that act was not just legal but deeply symbolic. It was a clear statement. My grandparents were my true family, the ones who truly cared about my well-being. With the custody battle behind us, I began to truly heal that spring when Grandma found a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Talking about my feelings, something I'd never been able to do, was both challenging and liberating. "You're doing great, Laura," my therapist would often say, her voice full of encouragement. "It's okay to feel these emotions. It's part of the healing process." Slowly but surely, I started to open up. School became a haven for me, free from the shadows of my past. My grades improved dramatically, and I discovered a deep love for science. The logical processes and discoveries mirrored my own journey of healing and self-discovery. "Look at this, Grandpa," I'd say proudly, showing him my latest science project on plant growth. "It's about how the right environment can influence growth." "Just like you, Laura," he'd reply, his voice thick with emotion. "You've grown so much." As the seasons changed, so did I. Each day brought new challenges, but also new joys. I learned to play the piano, filling the house with music, something my old home had never known. Grandma and I would sing along, our voices blending in harmony. Life was no longer about surviving each day, it was about truly living. My grandparents' unwavering support became my foundation, their love the walls that protected me, and their wisdom the roof that sheltered me from any storm. One sunny morning, as we planted a new batch of sunflowers in the garden, Grandma smiled at me, a smile that spoke volumes. "You've turned the tables, Laura. You've taken control of your story." As I watered the young plants, watching them reach toward the sun, I realized she was right. I had turned the tables. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. That evening, as I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my dress for the celebration, I couldn't help but reflect on the long journey that had brought me here. From a neglected, unwanted child to a young woman surrounded by love and purpose, my transformation felt almost unimaginable. Today wasn't just any birthday. It marked the launch of my New Beginnings, the New Beginnings Child Advocacy Foundation. With the inheritance Grandma and Grandpa had secured for me, I established the foundation to help children like me, providing them with educational and legal resources to rebuild their lives. Laura, are you ready? Everyone's starting to arrive. Grandma called from downstairs, her voice filled with excitement. Coming down the stairs, I was greeted by a house full of friends, family, and supporters, all gathered to celebrate not just my birthday, but the new chapter I was embarking on. The room was decorated with balloons and banners, the laughter and chatter creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. As I mingled with the guests, I shared my vision for the foundation. With New Beginnings, we can give children the support they need to heal and thrive. No child should ever feel alone or unloved. I explained, my passion evident. Guests nodded, offering words of encouragement. Laura, this is wonderful. You're making a real difference, a local teacher said, her eyes shining with admiration. Later that evening, Grandpa stood up to make a toast. To Laura, who has shown us all the strength of her spirit and the depth of her heart. You've turned pain into purpose, and we're all so proud of you. Glasses clinked, and cheers filled the room. I felt my eyes well with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. Grandma came over and wrapped her arm around me. Happy birthday, dear. This is just the beginning. As the night drew to a close, I looked around at the joyful faces, the room filled with genuine love and support. It was a stark contrast to the lonely, loveless birthdays of my childhood. Now I was surrounded by a community that believed in me and the cause I was fighting for. Stepping out into the garden for a moment of quiet, I gazed up at the stars. The night was peaceful, the air fresh with the promise of spring. I thought about all the children my foundation would help, the lives that could be transformed because someone cared. In that moment, I knew that every struggle I had faced was part of a larger journey. I had found my purpose, and I was exactly where I was meant to be. With a heart full of hope and a clear vision for the future, I was ready to change the world, one child at a time. Turning back to join the party, I carried with me a sense of peace. This was more than just a new beginning for me, it was a new hope for so many others. And as laughter and music filled the air, I celebrated not just my birthday, but the beauty of turning dreams into reality. Now that Laura's story has come to an end, what do you think is the most crucial support system for children facing neglect? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Olivia. I'm 17, a high school senior living in this typical suburban town. Sounds pretty normal, right? Well, things aren't always as they seem. I live with my parents, John and Linda, and my older brother, Mark. He's 19, and let's just say we don't exactly get along. See, cycling is my passion. It's my escape, and I've been training hard for an upcoming local competition. I'm actually pretty good at it, if I do say so myself. But Mark? He hates it. Every time I hit a new personal best or when our parents cheer me on, I can practically see the jealousy eating him alive. Great job on your training today, Olivia, Mom said one evening after dinner. Thanks, Mom. I shaved another 30 seconds off my route. I noticed Mark rolling his eyes from across the room. Big deal. It's just riding a bike, he muttered under his breath. Dad stepped in, trying to smooth things over. Now, Mark, your sisters worked hard. We should all be proud. Whatever, Mark grumbled, storming off to his room. My best friend Emily gets it though. We were hanging out in my room later that night, and I vented about Mark's attitude. He's just jealous, Liv, Emily said, flipping through a magazine. You're actually doing something with your life. I guess. I just wish he'd grow up already, you know. At least I have my cycling coach, Mr. Thompson, to lean on. During training, he always pushed me to be better. You've got real talent, Olivia, he told me after a grueling practice. Keep this up and you could go far. But things at home were only getting worse. One night, I overheard my parents whispering. "John, we need to do something about Mark and Olivia," Mom said. "They're just being siblings, Linda." "It'll blow over," Dad replied. I wanted to scream. This wasn't normal sibling rivalry, it felt like something more. The next morning, I headed to the garage for my usual preschool training session. I was pumped knowing I had an important practice later, but as I reached for my bike, something felt wrong. I knelt down to check, and my heart sank. The brake lines had been cut. I stood there frozen, staring at the clean slice. This wasn't an accident. Someone had done this on purpose, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who. As I heard footsteps approaching the garage, I straightened up, my mind racing. How was I going to handle this? And more importantly, who could I trust? I found Mark in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened. "Did you cut my brake lines?" I asked, my voice shaking. He looked at me like I was insane. "What? No way. Why would I do that?" "Because you're jealous," I snapped. "You can't stand that I'm good at something." Our parents rushed in, hearing the commotion. I explained about the brake lines, but they didn't seem to understand the seriousness of it. "Honey, are you sure it wasn't just wear and tear?" Mom suggested. "Yeah, Olivia. Stop being so dramatic," Mark smirked. I felt like I was losing my mind. No one believed me. Later that day, I met up with Emily at our favorite coffee shop. "I don't know what to do, Em. They think I'm overreacting," I said, exasperated. "That's messed up, Liv. You need to be careful," she warned, and I nodded, feeling just a little less alone. At my next practice, I confided in Mr. Thompson. "Olivia, this is serious. Don't take any chances with your safety," he said. Taking his advice, I started using my backup bike for training. But I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. A few days later, I overheard Mark on the phone in his room. He sounded stressed. "Drake, I swear I'll get you the money." "No, you don't understand. I can't ask my parents." "Money troubles?" Was that why he'd been acting so weird? Things took an even scarier turn during my next practice run. I was flying down a hill when suddenly my gears jammed. I barely managed to stop without crashing. When I inspected the bike, I found metal shavings in the gears. This wasn't an accident. That night, I made a decision. I set up a small camera in the garage, hidden behind some old paint cans. Days went by, and nothing happened. I started to think maybe I was being paranoid. But then, one afternoon as I reviewed the footage, my blood ran cold. There was Mark, clear as day, tampering with my bike. He was messing with the water bottle, likely putting something in it, something dangerous. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. This was it. No more doubts, no more second chances. 911. "What's your emergency?" "I need help," I stammered. "My brother has been sabotaging my bike. I have video evidence." As I waited for the police, a wave of emotions hit me. Relief that I wasn't imagining things, anger at Mark's betrayal, fear of what could have happened if I hadn't caught him. But more than anything, I felt a steely resolve. No one was going to hurt me anymore. Not even family. The police arrived faster than I expected. I led them to the garage, my heart pounding. "This way, officers. I have it all on video." We watched the footage together, and I could see the shock on their faces. One officer turned to me, his voice serious. "Mom, this is no joke. We'll need to question your brother." Just then, my parents burst in, their faces stricken with panic. "What's going on here?" Dad demanded. Mom's eyes widened when she saw the police. "Olivia, what have you done?" I couldn't believe it. Even now, they were defending Mark. "What I've done? Look at what he did," I shouted, pointing at the screen. Dad tried to intervene. "Officers, there's been a misunderstanding. Our daughter is overreacting." Overreacting? My anger boiled over. "He could have killed me," I yelled. The police remained firm, despite their discomfort. "Sir, we have to investigate this." As they led Mark away for questioning, he shot me a venomous glare. "You'll regret this, Olivia." The next few days were a blur of frustration and heartache. My parents kept begging me to drop the charges. "He's your brother, Olivia. Family sticks together," Mom pleaded. I looked at her, my voice cold. Family doesn't try to hurt each other. I couldn't take it anymore. I called my Aunt Karen, my mom's sister. "Aunt Karen, I don't know what to do. No one believes me." Her voice was warm and soothing on the other end. "Oh, honey, you can stay with me if you need to." That night, I packed a bag, ignoring my parents' desperate protests. As I was leaving, Dad made one last attempt. "Olivia, please, think about what this will do to our family." I turned to face them, tears stinging my eyes. "You should have thought about that before choosing Mark over me." At Aunt Karen's house, I finally felt safe, but the emotional toll was heavy. Most nights, I cried myself to sleep, trying to wrap my mind around how my family could betray me like this. A week later, the real shock came. The police uncovered Mark's involvement in a local drug ring. He owed money to some guy named Drake and was desperate to pay it back. Aunt Karen sat me down gently. "The police think he was sabotaging your cycling to distract your parents, or maybe even planning to sell your bikes. He might have even hoped for an accident to cash in on insurance." It all made sense. The late-night phone calls, his erratic behavior. But knowing the truth didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. As I sat on Aunt Karen's porch that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I had a realization. This wasn't just about Mark anymore. It was about me, choosing myself, my safety, my future. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. "You okay, sweetie?" Aunt Karen asked, joining me on the porch. I nodded slowly. "I will be. I'm just done letting them hurt me." She squeezed my hand. "You're stronger than you know, Olivia, and I'll be here for you every step of the way." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lifting off my shoulders. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it, on my own terms. It's been 6 months since I moved in with Aunt Karen, and so much has changed. I've thrown myself into cycling and school, using them as anchors in the emotional storm I've been navigating. "Olivia, you've qualified for nationals," Mr. Thompson announced one day during practice. My teammates erupted in cheers, and for the first time in a long while. That evening, I felt pure, unadulterated joy as Aunt Karen, and I celebrated over bowls of ice cream. "I'm so proud of you, honey. You've come so far," she said, her voice full of warmth. I nodded, emotions swirling inside me. "I couldn't have done it without you, Aunt Karen." The next day, I got a call from Mom. Mark had been sentenced to 3 years for drug charges and attempted harm. As much as I felt a strange sense of relief, there was also sadness for what could have been. "Olivia, your father and I, we're so sorry. We should have believed you," Mom said, her voice cracking with regret. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I appreciate that, Mom, but I need time. I can't just pretend like nothing happened." Setting boundaries was hard, but necessary. I threw myself into my training and started mentoring younger cyclists, sharing my story in hopes that others could recognize and escape toxic situations before it was too late. One day after practice, a young girl named Zoe approached me. "Your story, it helped me stand up to my bullying cousin. Thank you. Moments like these made everything worth it." As the national championship approached, I poured all my energy into preparation. On the day of the race, I stood at the starting line, my heart pounding. "On your marks." As I pedaled, flashes of the past months played in my mind. The cut brake lines, the betrayal, the nights I cried myself to sleep. But I also thought about the strength I'd found, the people who stood by me, and the lives I'd touched. I didn't win the race, but I beat my personal best by a mile. Crossing the finish line, I felt like I was flying. "You did it, Olivia," Emily screamed from the sidelines, waving wildly. Mr. Thompson gave me a proud nod. "That's my star pupil." Later, as the adrenaline faded, Aunt Karen handed me an envelope. "This came for you today." Inside was a letter offering me a full cycling scholarship to State University. I could hardly believe it. I did it. I really did it," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on my journey. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it no longer defined me. I thought about Mark, about my parents. I hoped they were healing too, in their own way, but I knew now that I couldn't set myself on fire to keep others warm. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt at peace. Tomorrow was a new day, full of possibilities, and I was ready to face it head-on, pedaling toward my future with strength, resilience, and hope. My name is Olivia, and this is my story of survival, of rising from the ashes. Remember, no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way forward. You just have to be brave enough to take that first step. What would you have done in Olivia's position? Would you have pressed charges against your own brother, or tried to handle it within the family?